All right, let's see. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay, my name is William Little. I'm a software engineer at cPanel, and today I'm going to talk to you about captive shells. I'm going to do this a little bit backwards, and so I'm going to start this off with a challenge. And so if you see on the screen, I have a server set up at tprc.bmo.dev, and there's the user pwnme, P-W-N-M-E. It's currently set up with a passwordless login, and have at it. So if y'all, I've placed a flag in this account, and inside the flag there's a magic word, and if anybody gets the flag, I just want you to shout it out. All right? All right. All right, so first I'm going to talk about captive shells. The most basic captive shell is probably a captive portal. And that's just, if you've ever been to an ATM, it's about securing the system. It's about locking down and preventing the user from carrying out different functions that you don't want them to. So the next you may have not heard is a menu shell. So this is very similar, but it's much more basic. This just provides a very basic menu, maybe it incurses. If you've ever been to Lowe's, you may have noticed that they actually use a Linux system with a menu shell for the point of sale system. All right, so next is a captive shell. So this is most commonly used for SSH or maybe jump boxes. So this is about securing a shell and limiting it to very little functions. And then finally, jailed shells. That's probably the most common one. It's pretty much the same thing as captive shell, but you're going to put it in a CH root, and you're going to limit it even further. All right, so I was wanting to lock down my server a little bit more, and I was looking into different ways of how I could limit the shells, limit the commands that could be ran. And first thing I started looking into was what's already out there. And one of the most common ones is rbash. That's a restrictive bash. It's actually just a symlink to bash with a built-in functionality to restrict the commands that are ran. It's had a little bit of a spotty past where it's been fairly easy to pop a regular bash shell and remove the restrictions. Next up might be AppArmor for Debian or SE-Linux for CentOS or RHEL boxes. That gets a little bit harder to configure. And then finally we have grsec. That's a kernel module that we can use to secure it even further. But after looking at these, I was thinking, well, I wish there was something a little bit more simple or just something I can just say, I only want these commands and just let it go. And so I decided to write one in Perl. But before we get there, just want to talk about some of the footguns with Perl exec, because we may be taking in these commands and we want to make sure that we're executing them safely. If you read the Perl doc for system, it tells you if there's only one scalar argument, the argument is checked for shell meta characters. If there are any, it's passed to the system shell. And so we really want to avoid spawning a shell. And so if we read the bash page for man, we can see what the meta characters are. And so we really want to make sure that we restrict those characters so we don't pop a shell. All right, so here is a project that I did, Captive Camel. This is what the configuration file looks like. At the very top, we have help and exit options. This just tells it that we want to allow the user to issue a help command and to exit the shell. Next, we have a hash of commands. There's only two types, prefix and exact. And so, for example, on the sudo, we want to match sudo for a prefix, and we don't want to allow the commands that come after it or the options that come after it. For running the date command, we don't want to allow them to run any options, so we're just going to look for an exact match. So that's pretty much it. It's just simple. All right, so right here I've spawned a demo of it. So if I issue the help command, it tells me the commands that I'm allowed to run. All right. And that's about it. Let's see. I'll go through the code real quick. Is that it? Okay. All right. Thank you.